So then we are back with the more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services that we find in the Aramaic English translation of the Word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Itzayelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end as per Yeshayahu the prophet. We find a layer of understanding of the spring feast, autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. So then, as we are aware of the city of the Messiah, then the first city on the land of Cush, as per the instructions of the prophet Yeshayahu, chapter 1:8, where then the establishment of the world's direction then re-established. So then, we find ourselves then studying the trades portion of it, because obviously Ishmael was a king, and his kingship then obviously the trades practices of Ishmael then is returning. Let's then study a bit Daniel the 11th chapter in what's going on in the world. There was then found in a bricks post, precisely there is on the first page, where then you can read the Soviet Union and China, most important partners, then India, the Prime Minister, is then part of the big leaders of the moment. As we understand, per the instructions of Daniel, you find the big first, second, and third kingdoms is then China, Soviet Union, and then Africa. At the moment, the Indians are taking the place of Africa because Africa is not yet up and does not have the proper momentum at the moment. Because we are then prior of Daniel the 11th chapter and the 5th verse, where then and the southern kingdom will be strong. We are prior of this time. So let's evaluate what's going to take place next year. You find then the BRICS coming to Brazil. The Brazilian people, unfortunately, they are the weakest, and the whole country is then the weakest of the BRICS. If you study then the Brazilian news on the BRICS post, you find only disaster, tragedy, expenses. You find only bad news. The only great news you find, obviously regarding then at least expenses, is buying then weaponry from the Soviet Union. The second is then India coming to Brazil. Extremely important because they are obviously people of trade for many centuries. Then we have then to do another study, because there is another section of the Holy Instructions where then we find ourselves studying regarding then China. China is making deals in many countries, and it is extremely important then China making a deal with Egypt. China can't forget Egypt, because from the starting of trade as we know of, Egypt was there, and proud of Egypt was then China. So Egypt is very important, but a step-by-step formation. At the moment we find then India is making partnership then with the Soviet Union and also China. So then, this implicates later India must then give away then to Africa. How is it going to get done? Later we will understand what's going to take place, because at the moment these powerful nations must then start up the system. As you can read then also in the BRICS post, very importantly, the BRICS, they are to form an electronic secretariat. They are going to have this information back and forth amongst the nations, and then they will have at some point later in the future, they will know via electronic ways of each country receiving taxes. We're going to go there then shortly. Prior of this time, we find the United States obviously not recovering. You find a nation that was so strong after the Second World War, fought bravely in a couple of wars, plus, but at the moment the United States is obviously searching for an objective. And the objective of USA is obviously the computer. They have to start doing their homework. As the nations are coming together, they are understanding the importance of trade via online, and the linking up of nations via a computerized system where the monetary value is then virtual. China must substitute the USD. The Chinese yuan must substitute USD. There is no question regarding this topic. As the USD has value yet, it is important and crucial for the USA then to build this computer, and nations from around the world report to US so they can program the computer so each nation can receive their dues as they do trade with China. This section has many topics. You have to find then what kind of taxes. You have to understand then, as the Chinese system then is launched, where you have a gigantic eBay, let's say for instance as an example, not only you can purchase, but you can invest at the same time. When you then transfer or do an exchange from the USD to Chinese yuan, there is a direct line with the Bank of China. Then the federal government is away from. It is a foreign monetary system where local central banks can't invade your situation. When you have, for instance, PayPal linked up with your eBay or other type of credit card, you have a control of your local central bank. When the Chinese system is launched, you have an exclusive line with the Chinese banking. It is excluded from the local central banks. So then, when you purchase using Chinese yuan, the central bank or this banking around your own computer, they can't read what you do. So they can purchase, they can receive, they can invest via the same line, absolutely private. No person can sneak around what you are doing. That's the genius of China, and then obviously came from above. At this point, we are then emphasizing the importance of US not be concerned with so much spying around the world. They are not be spying around, they are to be monitoring the percentages. So let's evaluate. As then the Chinese system is launched, must have a computer system so then the investments and transfers can be then put under the control. Let's say you have 12 digits available for purchase or investment. You then transfer these 12 digits from USD to Chinese yuan. When you are linked with the Chinese system in your computer, you have become then a central bank of your own. Then you make your own investments, your own purchases. You can even pay people using then the foreign monetary system, because other people are going to be linked with the same system. Do you understand what you are going to do with your savings? You're going to get rid of your savings, and you are going obviously to invest in the Chinese system. Not only this, but your checking, you're going to have there the bare minimum. So you can imagine what's going to take place with the economy. As nations are neglecting this factor, the more the stupidity, the more neglecting, the more lack of understanding, the more China wins. It does not mean China is going to turn the world upside down. But easily the Asians can manipulate the percentages so they can get taxes from. Let's evaluate. Then you have 12 digits in your computer. You make then obviously purchases and decide to invest. As you begin to invest, the next month you receive your investments. Let's say you invest in some sort of a product. Not only one product, but you invest then in 10, 20, 10,000 products, and then in the span of a month, then you receive your investments. They won't be very big, but if you multiply by 10,000 other products, as then the world, then the nations are purchasing the items that you projected, then you gain your share of it. How are the governments going to get taxes from? Great news, they won't. The only way they can get taxes from is when you take your yuan from your system and you convert over to your local banking. But how much can they transfer? How much they can charge of taxes? How much they can charge when you transfer some of this money from yuan to USD, from USD to somebody else? What kind of percentages are going to be involved? What is the relationship of the central bank and the Chinese system? What's the relationship of the Chinese system and the local banks? Nobody knows. There is not yet a definite understanding of this computerized system. But the US then obviously must try to get on and get this computer then built up, so then the percentages can be under the control. Let's say you buy a product in 1 month for a certain price. Then the next month it has another price. How are you going to control the percentages? Let's say if the Asians, they begin to manipulate the percentages of transfers. How are the governments then get taxes from and control those percentages? We must ask those questions because it is extremely important. Central banks around the world, they don't have control over the system. As then the system, prior of its activation, as the computer then is pre-selected on how they want to get their money from, then the percentages can be pre-established and they must remain then intact, stable. So then in 1 month you can gain a certain percentage. Let's say for instance you invest and then you receive. The next month then, let's say they begin to raise the price. How you are going to convert then what you projected for a certain month based on what you have invested, and then if the price increases, how you're going to deal with it. And these can be easily done. If there is not a nation monitoring these percentages, it can be done very easily. So then, the United States has then the ability of starting up this system, so then every nation, they can specify what kind of percentages they are expecting from each user. It's a very big project. But the USD is not going to hold for very long. So as US then begins to build this computer and have those for sale, then they can organize the country and re-establish their economy. At the moment, at the velocity they are spending, they have until next year on the mid-month to get their act together. From then on is then unlimited grab of money, and they have no way of paying it back. It would be the ruin of US. So they have then obviously lots of armaments, but they can't use those against nations doing trade. So then, let's evaluate at the moment, because next year then, also China is going to be in Africa, precisely in Congo, the very place where the prophet Yeshayahu had said, "Woe to the nation beyond the rivers of Ethiopia." That is going to be a very complicated relationship. Most of the Daniel the 11th chapter is directly related with the Congo, because we understand there are lots of minerals there, extremely important for aerospace industry, then for telephones and computers and whatsoever is linked with technology, weaponry, armaments. But then we must understand the importance of the computer. At the moment, India is obviously taking then the place of Africa for a moment. But then next year, we can simply say with absolutely certainty, when then China established its trade in Congo, and the many companies of China then would put up a show in Congo, and they begin to sign deals, then we can expect Mr. Kabila from there to begin his quest of earning his position. It won't be easy, because lots of war must be fought at in DRC, in Congo, until later on the Soviets come down and they crush the rebels, and they crush the war, and then they can organize the mines. So when you read Daniel the 11th chapter from the Israelic lineage, don't read from the Greco-Roman, because it's a piece of junk. Read from the Israelic lineage, and then you will understand. The 11th chapter of Daniel is precisely for the time of the restoration period. And then the first stick of the Ishmaelites must be then restored. Unfortunately, the king of Arabia decided to refuse the seat in the United Nations. It was a very stupid decision. He should have taken on the seat and then complain. Only say his viewpoint, what he thinks should be done. But when he refused, he became a coward. He's absolutely scoundrel coward. Because the world is not, the Creator is not going to come down from heaven where he's at and come down and straighten out the situation. He places people in specific situations so then the plan and objectives can be then completed. He was given a very important position and he ran away from it. And then he runs away and then complains from behind. He's not very smart. He must take on his seat, reconsider, and then be there and be constructive. He's not going to use the Quran and then hang everybody from there. He has to be polite. He has to be diplomatic. He has to understand other cultures, because they are being linked up with the computer. So then, as we expect next year then for China to make a deal with Congo, then we can expect Daniel 11:5 then to engage the gear. You know, Ezekiel, the first chapter, the big machine that you read there in many circles, those are synchronizing circles. In some portions of the scripture you understand as discs. The disc is simply a synchronization of event. The layers of the holy instructions being then obviously synchronizing themselves in a big machine. So then, next year when China makes a deal with Congo, then the kingdom of the south shall be strong. From then on, there is the work in the entire continent of Africa. So then later on, other engagements of those discs then can synchronize. So please stay tuned, much more coming up.